Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Midwest Gaming Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Garris, Panel Director of the Midwest Gaming Classic. And this podcast episode is the annual Voice Actors Speak panel. Join Christopher Sean from Star Wars Rebels, Ultraman Rising, and Gotham City Knights, Edward Bosco from Hazbin Hotel, Dust, and Elysian Tale, and Warioware, and Bill Rogers, who voiced Pokemon shows and games, as they discuss how they broke into voice acting, what their favorite roles have been, and anything else you might want to know. And you know what? Enough of me talking. Why don't we get to the panel?
Welcome to our voice actors panel. We are -2 right now, but I think we'll get them coming in later on. So we're going to start. All right, we have Mr. Christopher Sean. Star Wars Rebels, the first Asianist to have a lead in the Star Wars franchise. And then we've also got Edward Bosco. Hazbin Hotel, Dust, and Elysian Tale, Warioware. So, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
How did you get into voice acting, and what was your
I'm a terrible first story. I fell into it by accident. You guys ever heard of Red versus Blue? Yeah. I literally just wanted to be in that, so I thought, I'll just message Rooster Teeth. That's how that works. And sadly, they never got back to me, but that's okay. What I did find was a bunch of message boards with indie animation, and if you guys remember Newgrounds, which is still around, I did some stuff on there, and then I'm like, this is kind of fun. I want to try it for real. And so I went out to Nickelodeon and interned in their casting department for 3 or 4 months. And I went, oh, that's what it takes. Moved to LA in 2012. I was a mascot at Universal. I was Scooby-Doo and the Box Trolls, so I still have Scooby on my phone, because mascotting is fun. I was a professional furry, as I like to say. And while I was doing that, I was on the side trying to get the voiceover craft to go around, and I did a game called Dust and Elysian Tale, which you mentioned. That's one of the first things I got to do. And from there, I just kept grinding, and here I am. So.
All right, and Christopher, how did you get into acting and voice acting?
I was on a soap opera. It was my first big gig, Days of Our Lives, and I've done 335 episodes. I just recently filmed some more. But yeah, I really wanted to be a voice actor, and I kept telling my agent for 6 years, I'd love to do a voice act. Like, this is so cool, and I think that world is amazing. I'm a huge anime nerd. So 6 years, not one audition. And he finally gives me an audition, and the audition I get was Ultron. And I read for Red Line. I got the producers at DreamWorks. And Steven Yeun books it over me from The Walking Dead. I was like, dude, how cool is it to be in the room with Steven Yeun? I was like, dude, that's amazing. Didn't book it, obviously, but I get a call like a month later, and my agent's like, yo, Lucasfilm is calling for you, and they have a role for you. And they want to talk to you about being the lead of the new series, Star Wars Resistance. And I was like, okay. So that was my first job as an actor, my second audition as a voice actor.
So when you auditioned for Star Wars, they knew they wanted you at that point. Were you auditioning with anybody else?
I don't know if you guys know Donald Faison from Scrubs, and it's pretty awesome. He was like kind of in and out, and I'm kind of walking in the room. They didn't specifically know if they wanted me. It was me and like 2 other actors, but they continued to lean towards me and favor me more, so I kept going in the room more than the other people. And it was a long process, an arduous process. It took like maybe 3 weeks of going back and forth before they finally gave me an answer. But yeah, it worked out great. And I got to work with Oscar Isaac. They flew me to New York, and I was like, they're like, okay, it's gonna get super secret. They flew me to New York. They got me tickets to watch Oscar Isaac perform Hamlet the night before. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. So I'm gonna show up the next day. I'm gonna be there an hour early. He was there even earlier. He's sipping tea, like, hey kid, great character. And I was like, what are you, like, what? And then we were working. He's like, I'm taking steroids. My throat is really sore. I don't know if I can do more than one episode. And I was like, just the fact that you're here, it validates our series. And then after that, it was like, we started working. We had great chemistry. And he was like, I'm staying the whole thing. I was like, oh my God. So we did all the episodes with him. It was just so great.
That needs to be like a business card. You're the reason Arthur Isaac is on our show.
He's great.
All right. Welcome,
Hi.
Bill.
I had to do the Grandpa Simpson. Is this thing on?
Now it is. I didn't do the Grandpa Simpson thing because I came down from the hotel, but I forgot my badge, so security people were there. And so it was like, good day, and then like immediately, good day. So I had to run back to the room. I apologize for that. Hi. I'm here.
So, question we just started a few minutes ago. How did you get into voice acting?
First of all, who the heck are you?
Who the heck am I? Well, so I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how I got into voice acting, and I'll tell you who the heck I am.
Got it.
All right. So back in the
So the microphone amplifies your voice to the audience.
Feel free to be on mic. All right.
Well, actually, so I started as a theater kid in the 90s.
In the late 90s, I was a theater kid in the early 2000s, and
No, you're fine down there. Sorry. Owie. You can wait till I'm done now.
but in 2001, I was in New York, and so in 2001 there was a studio called Headline Studios, and a guy by the name of Joe Georgie was running it. He was like, hey, we need actors, and voice acting, dubbing stuff was being done in the 90s, but it was still in its infancy. So they were like, we need actors. You can be a stage actor. It's fine. We'll show you the ropes as you go along. We just need like actors that actually have an actor training and an actor background. And so the very first thing I did was an anime called Assemble Insert, where I voiced a bunch of like little miscellaneous characters. And that went pretty well because Joe called me back, and then I got to start auditioning for things. And so I was then Officer Yamamoto in Movie Pop Phantom, and then I was Thomas Satucci in Gravitation, and anime, on and on and on and on, from like over 20 years ago that a lot of people probably don't remember. But in 2006, I had the opportunity to audition. They were changing up the cast of Pokemon, and I ended up getting the role of Brock. So I've been the voice of Brock in Pokemon since 2006. Along the way, I've also acquired the voice roles of 64 different Pokemon creatures. So it's a fitting number for this weekend. Commodore 64 forever! But yeah, so it's been 18 years on the Pokemon thing. But about 2015, I moved to Los Angeles, and then you might know me from the voice of Yuri in Street Fighter V, and the King of Hyrule in Zelda Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity. I'm in Hunter x Hunter and a whole bunch of other anime. I'm all over the places. So I'm also Wheeljack in the Netflix War for Cybertron series, which was a personal goal for me because I was a child of the 80s and I loved the Transformers. And when I tell people I'm Wheeljack, they're like, you seem a little young to be Wheeljack. And I'm already kind of old, but yeah, the franchise has been around for 40 years and I was a small child when it came out. But yeah, that was a dream come true. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell. All right, I'll stop talking.
And you can come back up.
Everybody, welcome Ed back to the stage.
Hey! Were you again? Were you again?
I don't know. I just woke up from a nap.
He's heard the story enough times.
So, just for fun, have you guys ever like had a conversation between your different characters?
Like just for fun?
Just for fun.
I'm like, if we're just when he calls me, like, why would I do? I mean, in War for Cybertron, obviously, I think we may have talked to each other, maybe once. Did Magnus ever talk to the wheelchair?
No.
No? Well, there you go. All right, so never.
We might have been around Saturday.
I fight you in Pokemon. Does that count?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So actually, did you tell them?
What? No, that wasn't one of the ones that was listed on those sheets. I didn't say it. I'm the new voice of Charizard in Pokemon Horizon, so I get to beat up Bill a little bit.
And I'm Corviknight, so we fight a lot.
Well, you're one of the Corviknights.
I am the Corviknight in the animated series. He is Corviknight in
Twilight Wings.
So there you go. Just
So yeah, we fight in real life and we fight in
we fight in real
character.
life. We fight in the anime.
But you know what? Just also next to that, we were at the High Note doing karaoke the other night, and Bill was saying, "If I had $1 million,"
I knew it. I knew it was the Baird
saying both parts. So he kind of did a voice with himself on stage.
And that was actually the question I was thinking, was just among yourself, you know, when you're alone in the room.
When you're alone in silence.
Oh yeah, I do it in my room all the time. I practice creature noises. I'll talk to myself. I play a lot of D&D, so if I have a big session coming up, I'll practice a monologue in my brain as my character. Like, what do I want to say? This is really important. This could affect the whole campaign. I have to make sure I do it perfect. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm crazy.
The voice only comes to me at night.
When I'm alone.
I was gonna go all James Lipton on you guys and
Go ahead.
and try to just say, answer this question as.
Good.
I'm not gonna do that.
If you were a ball, what kind of ball would you be?
Basketball.
Of course.
Yeah.
But feel free to answer anybody's question in any voice that you care to answer.
Indeed.
This could be a lot of fun, and we are video recording this.
Oh, good.
Remember,
Remember, what happens on the internet stays there. It's great.
You'll be famous.
I'm already famous.
So,
are you?
I'm not.
so of all the characters that you do, what's your favorite?
I've been talking a lot, you guys.
Or say, who's your favorite?
I'll go first. I don't care. One of my favorites is Ara from Dust Elysian Tale, because it was such a departure from what I normally do and who I am. He's nice, he's wise, he's smart, he's kind, all the things that I wish I could be. And that was just a fun role because it challenged me as an actor. But then also, I'm biased. I really like Alistair in Hazbin Hotel. I adore him, and I adore Stryker and Hell of a Boss. So those two are very high on the list for me because I worked with Viv since she was in college. I worked on her college thesis project, Son of 666. So anytime I get to work with Viv and her amazing art style, and just the collaborative process that those characters have, because a lot of times you're stuck with the script and you say with the words that are on the page. She lets us ad-lib a lot, so those characters are near and dear to my heart because I've done a lot of ad-libbing and I feel like I've gotten to explore all sides of them. Nobody else?
Who's your favorite Christopher?
I love them all differently. Like you kind of. I love them because they're all different parts of me, right? And so they all they're my own little therapy. Because I get to deal with situations that I would never personally deal with. But yeah, so I love them all. But I'm very excited for Ultraman. It's what I'm most excited about. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be huge, and I just can't wait for that wave to start.
For me, Brock is such an iconic character, and he's been with me for 18 years, so it's been a journey. A Pokemon journey.
Yeah.
I'll see myself.
Yeah, just get out.
But seriously though, when I got to voice Wheeljack, when the auditions for Transformers came out, I was so excited when my agent sent me stuff. I was like, I just want to read for everything. There's got to be something for me in this. So I read for Autobots, Decepticons, everybody. I was like, I'm just going to read for everything, just throw it all out there and see what happens. And it was weird, because in the back of my mind I was thinking, I don't know how many people remember the old 80s Transformers series, but Chris Latta, who was the voice of Starscream and Wheeljack, Chris is no longer with us. He passed in the 90s. But Frank Todaro is doing a brilliant job as the voice of Starscream in a lot of different franchises now. But Wheeljack in the original 80s series, it kind of sounded like a New York cab driver. And so when I was reading for that in Los Angeles, I'm like, I have a feeling this is going to be the one. And that was actually the one that I booked. And then when I went in, War for Cybertron, if you haven't seen it yet, it's more of a dark, gritty show. So it's more like a war is hell type of thing instead of like, I'll get you next time, Prime. So it's, when I went in, I was like, we gotta get the arc on, Prime. And the director's like, okay, well, I need you to like pull that back a little bit. So that's why when you hear Wheeljack in the show, he's more subdued, but he's still got that kind of New York grit to him. So I appreciated that I was able to keep that characterization there to kind of honor Chris's performance, but at the same time, bring it into that kind of gritty place. So it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it.
So thinking about the process of bringing a character to life, when you're recording, do you kind of what's your process? Do you record like one line or one or two lines, and then do it 3 different ways, and then wait for feedback, or you just kind of lay it all out there?
It really depends on the kind of project you're working on. So for example, a lot of you guys watch anime, yeah? So even that varies. So there are different methods. Sometimes it's line by line. You just go one at a time and you just make sure that you nail the timing of that. But now they have something called Rhythmo Band where you're almost like karaokeing different lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's kind of a newer thing. With video games, sometimes they'll do an entire scene. You're often on video games not with somebody else, but they'll still run a scene down and maybe read the in-betweens. It'll be the director or somebody in the control room. And on other games, they'll do one line at a time. They'll be like, give us an A, B, and C, let's see what happens. And so it really depends on what the director's doing and how they want to do it. I prefer to go a chunk at a time and like do a scene, especially if I have the in-betweens. Animation is my favorite because normally with animation, you're in the room with folks and acting is reacting. You've heard that a million times. So when you can be in there with other human beings, you will get reads that are much more natural and think. You won't have time to think of like an A, B, and a C because you're going to react to whatever they give you. And every time they give you a different read, you're going to give a different read if you're listening to what they're doing. So that's my preference.
I think that covered it.
So
Lots of different things.
do you guys actually go to a studio, or do any of you record from your home?
We have a home studio, and that became more of a thing during the pandemic. A lot of us had to record from home during the pandemic, and some of that has carried over, and all of our auditions are done from our home studio, so very rarely we will still be able to get studio time in our home studio, but now they're having us come in more and more. And it's nice because there's an engineer in there, he handles all the levels and stuff when you're at home, you do that. The mic positioning is all you at home, that's the engineer's job. There's lag, so especially with anime, it's kind of hard when you're trying to hit those flaps. They have to take some time to move it around because there's a delay. So yeah, you can work from home, but most of the time we're in the studio. At least I am.
Yeah, same. I have a home studio, but I prefer to be at the studio. I prefer to be in person, working with directors, producers. Not that I can work anywhere, but I much prefer I like being around people, animated people are amazing.
So I'm going to open it up for questions. So
There was a guy about halfway through the room who raised his hand.
okay, I'm going to walk back to you here. And,
Sorry, buddy.
Make them work.
let's see. Just
Make them work. Give them to the mic.
give us your first name and your question.
Question is, least favorite voice acting experience? No need to leave out.
Can I do funny stories count?
Yes.
All right, so I was working on, I think the project was a Korean house. So the director on that project, there was a language barrier, so English was their second language. And so they were trying to direct me through some of the lines, and they came over the talkback, which is the little button that you hit to be able to talk to the person in the other room. And they go, so could you do that again, but with more acting? And I took a moment and I went, did they really they don't know how to, okay. So I did it again and I kind of understood what they wanted, and then because I gave them what they wanted, because I guessed right, they were like, yes, that was perfect. but that became the way that they communicate. So from then on, when I didn't give them what they wanted, it was a combination of, can we do more acting or more emotion? More acting, more emotion, more volume. So they were very direct, but I kind of got what they were, and it was really funny because I knew they weren't trying to insult me, but they just didn't know how to communicate what they were looking for. But in the end, we were able to make it work. And I just laugh about it, and now my friends will always be like, Bosco, that was great, but could you act better? Could you do more acting?
Maybe act.
Yeah, I try, it's not even.
So mine is actually more of a cautionary tale. I do a lot of Pokemon creature noises and stuff like that, but Lisa and I are very careful with how we do that.
Who's Lisa?
Oh, sis, good point. Lisa Ortiz is the director of Pokemon. She's also the voice of Oshawott and a bunch of Pokemon creatures, but somewhere along the lines of doing Pokemon voices for longer than I have, she was asked to be the director of the show. So she's been directing for the last 10 years on the show. And she's really great and the Pokemon clients are really great with understanding Pokemon stress. So it's like, okay, if it's something simple, then that's great. But then, Hydreigon is one of my more difficult Pokemon to voice because he's just this deep, guttural type of thing that comes from the back of the throat. And we have to be really careful with that stuff. So we kind of pace ourselves, and it's good, and have a lot of tea and water and stuff in the booth to make sure that hopefully don't blow myself out. But I did work with a client once, and actually, oddly enough, Lisa was director on that too. But it was a smaller, indie game client, and they were just kind of steamrolling over her. And they weren't really giving her the chance to kind of direct or interject or whatever. And so they were like, oh, this is the Pokemon guy. And they were just like, great, we can just push a button and make noises. So they were like, okay, it's a demon, okay, it's a this thing. And I was like, oh, and they're like, okay, yeah, bigger. And they're like, more. And I did a bunch of stuff and I did a bunch of reacts. And they were like, great. That was great. Okay, we'll move on to the next character. This one's even bigger. And I'm like, I just did what was the biggest thing no, it's gonna be great, And I was like, well, and Lisa's like, well, could Bill just grab some water, Bill? Can we get some tea, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, no, keep going, it's great. We've got a quick deadline. We gotta get this thing done. Come on, let's keep going. And they just kept stepping on her, trying to interject and be like, let's. And so I just see her through the glass and so I liken it to, I was trying to impress the client because it was earlier in my career, and I was just trying to go big, and I got about an hour through a 2-hour session, and I felt like the best way to sum it up would be I'm gonna swim across the ocean, and you swim for about an hour, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can't swim anymore. I'm about an hour back from the shore, and just trying not to drown going back. So it was just, that second hour was horrible of me being like, and they're like, wow, that sounds like a ghost rate, that's perfect. I was just like, and so yeah, I had blown out my voice from that because on 2 days of vocal rest afterwards, and so yeah, you gotta be really careful with that stuff.
Actually, I really like working kind of everything. I guess I don't really have negative experiences. If I were to answer the question, I don't know where he went. Oh, there he is. But if I were to say least favorite would be, it's difficult to do dubbing for live action K-dramas.
Oh yeah.
I've done 2 of those, and I was like, I'd rather do an original character that's my own that I can kind of have fun and play with. It's a lot of fun because they're amazing actors, but the bouncing ball is very difficult for me to kind of do. I like doing anime. I would love to do dubbing for anime, but not live action K-dramas.
It's tough, man. It's real tough.
You do live action K-dramas?
We've both done stuff. I've done you start being like, which language is the hardest to dub? Like Chinese is really hard to dub because the mouth and the syllables are nothing like English, so it just never lines up. But then you have like the one director who's like, no, that didn't fit, let's try it again. It's like, this is not gonna fit perfect. They're not saying the same words. Please.
Well, and the problem too is that with animation, unless it's like a Miyazaki movie, where they're like having every little subtle nuance of mouth movement animated. Usually it's just mouth open, mouth closed, mouth open, mouth closed, mouth open, mouth closed. Watch an episode of Pokemon at some point, you'll realize that Ash is just this. So, and it's that way with a lot of anime. So with that, it's just, we're starting here, we're ending here, and it has to make sure it fits in that space. Because if you go over or you start early, it's gonna look like a bad kung fu movie or a bad film or something. It's like, over there, look, there it is, you know, so we gotta be careful with that. But the problem with live action is every country has a different way of speaking and a different mouth movements. And then they're like, we're gonna have this in English. And somebody will be talking like this and it just doesn't look right, it's how you would speak. So it's like, how do we follow this and make it work and fit? But actually, speaking of kind of not necessarily, it was not bad experiences, but I've noticed that I do get a lot of, like when I go in to work on live action, like, oh, cartoon guy, here he comes. And I'll walk in and they'll be like, okay, so this is dubbing. And I'm like, yes, been doing this for 23 years now. It's like, okay, and, but this is an animation, so we need it to be grounded. And I'm like, yeah, I did 15 years of theater back in New York. And like, okay then. And then I'll go into the booth and I'll start dubbing. And they're like, how are you doing that? I'm like, because 23 years of dubbing on top of the 15 years of stage acting, it's kind of a thing that I do. I actually had a director, and she's great, I love her, I work with her a lot now, but the very first time I worked with her, she just brought me in to do like filler in like a film. And she was like, okay, so we've got 2 other soldiers and they're on the radio. And so we just need you to be the 3rd soldier on the radio. You won't see the character, but let's listen. And so this was how character 1 sounded, and this was how character 3 sounded. And I was like, okay, if I do character 2, do you want him to be pitched up or pitched down a little bit? She was like, what? And I said, well, I can do something like this, and then he's gonna sound like he's a little young and inexperienced, so he's not gonna sound like a soldier. Or I can do something that's a little more down in this range, and he's gonna sound like a grizzled warrior. Is that something that would probably be better for this? But I just wanted to check with you. And I swear to God, she looked at me through the glass and went, how did you do that?
Well, you see,
Called modulating the sound of my voice without it sounding like, I'm a soldier, here I go, I'm ready, Sarge, let's go fight them. Because you know that's what she was expecting to come out of my mouth. Because you're like, oh, okay, do something different, cartoon boy.
yeah, you go, America.
Yeah, I'm a soldier now. So, that was long-winded.
Yeah.
I see this one and I saw you.
Oh no, he's wearing a Packers jersey, we can. Yeah.
Don't start. Don't start.
Go Bears.
Oh,
To the bottom of the...
I'm a Cubs fan, that's any compensation.
I'll take it, you know what? Trade off. You've suffered with me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. But anyway, I was wondering, how did you get the role of Ara in Dustin Elysian Tale?
So originally I was helping my buddy Mac cast the whole project, and Ara was the very last character that we cast, and Mac was like, I'll probably just do this myself. And so rather than let Mac do it, I was like, well, let me just record every line because I have the script that I shouldn't have, and I sent it to him. And he was like, I don't like that you did this, but I like what you did. So you're gonna do it, and I'm going to make your life a living hell for it. So he directed me very hard, and I appreciated it because again, that was a role that it's not my typecast, which means the stuff that I normally play. So I appreciated being stretched as an actor, and I liked what we did.
Which actually is a good thing to mention about people who often come up to me and they're shirt prints at the panels and signings and stuff. I go, how do I be a voice actor? It's really, you need to get a start, And I always, since I come from a theater background, I'm like, hey, go do some community theater, go do some college theater, be in your high school play, do something that involves acting. But another thing, like Ed's talking about, is there are indie game projects out there. There are student animators that are doing stuff for their college animation thesis. They're going to need voices. Try to find things that you can get involved in to, like, obviously it's like you're not going to just show up at Warner Brothers and be like, I want to be Batman. But, you know, go and...
That didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I tried it.
So instead, Ed worked on an indie game as his first project. So it's a really good way of getting, you know, cutting your teeth and getting involved.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
And Bill's absolutely correct. There's voice acting, there's stage acting, there's on-camera acting, but it all derives from acting. You gotta act. The number one thing, like I'm working with the director Amanda Wyatt from Ghost of Tsushima and Suicide Squad, and she's brought me on amazing projects. We love them, man.
You're in Suicide Squad?
Yeah, I play Toy Man. Yeah. But the number one thing Amanda does is when she teaches a workshop, she says, I'm looking for actors, not voice actors, I'm just looking for good actors. So learn acting if you're going to do voice acting. So if anyone wants to be an actor, Bill teaches classes. No, I'm just kidding.
He does now.
When? I gotta sign up for that.
All right, we got our next question right here.
As like a young person, how would I get into voice acting?
Well, as a fellow young person, I would like to point out that you can use the thing with the computer, the internet. So there's this thing called Twitter, which is really cool. I forget the exact account, but there's multiple. There are a lot of indie producers that will post auditions on Twitter. They're like, hey, this is kind of like a low-budget game. This is all we can offer for the rate, if we're offering anything at all. But it's going to end up on Steam, and people are going to be able to play it, and your name is going to be in the credits. Those are great things to look for because the competition is a lot less than, like, let's say, a Batman movie or, you know, the next Marvel cartoon. So that's a great place to cut your teeth. And also, you'll find stuff that goes up on Newgrounds or YouTube that are just little animation shorts. Like, hey, I want to do this like Helldiver short. I just need some soldier guys. Here's an audition for it. All of that stuff typically gets put up on Twitter. So that's a great place to look for stuff. And then there's also message boards like Voice Acting Club, where you can also find some of those auditions. And that's a great place to cut your teeth. Because then when you're like, hey, this is kind of what I've done, you'll have some of those things on your resume. But you also don't have to compete against people that are going up for animation every day or the AAA games.
There's also a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's curated by D. Bradley Baker, who is one of our veteran voice actors. And he's been in the industry for a good size of time and has done a good depth and breadth of roles. So he's got the experience and knows what he's talking about. And a lot of your questions will be answered right on there. Because it'll be like, hey, look at the FAQ. It's like, that's the question I was going to ask.
I always say the same. D. Bradley Baker's the number one voice actor.
Yep.
He's got over 1,000 roles. Check out iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's long, but it's easy. It'll really help you out. Also, you can get cheap mics and amps and all that. You can get it all cheap. Like, you don't have to invest too much money. And then when you book one gig, you typically make all your money back for it as well. You know, I spent like $1,000 on my setup, and I booked a very nice, lucrative gig that paid me a lot more than $1,000.
Return on investment's pretty good.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll add one too, just from my experience, kind of involved with the show and some stuff. Be a nice guy.
That helps.
No, it doesn't. Don't listen to this guy.
I'm just like the door down. I'm flanked by two nice people, and they work way more than I do. That's true.
Just from having been on the other side of it, people want to work with people they want to work with. So be the guy that people want to work with, and they will spread that around. And the flip side of that, if you're not a nice guy, that gets spread around too.
Students are people next time.
So anyway, next question right here.
So I guess my question is the role of activity and kind of like working out in your roles, because you got a lot of like action, a lot of roles where you play like soldiers, and let me know your workout routines, but I just want to know, like, if you're exhausted, you ever go out for a run, like, you ever do some push-ups and you want to be in that role of soldier and such, you know?
I mean, I feel like you should probably.
I'm pretty sure that this guy.
Well, but hold on. All right. I'll get to you in a second.
Wow, I think we really are low levels of commitment. Christopher, you can tell, is like the guy who's at the gym every morning.
What's your
He
resume?
goes every once in a while.
No, what are you
I'm
talking
pretty
about?
much
It's
just,
5 days a
I'm
week.
becoming the one with my couch.
I don't know how to answer that.
How much do you work out? How many days?
I work out 5 days a week.
Okay.
Doing stuff
5,
my
like
whole life. Yeah.
It's working for him though.
I also hire personal trainers. I invest in myself, right? Like, I hired Grant Roberts. He was a lot of money, but he trained Kumail Nanjiani. He trained Hilary Swank. He trains Disney's superheroes. So I was like, okay, I want to look like that. Teach me what I need to do. So he helped me break down the anatomy of the body, going through physiology, understanding nutrition, proper nutrition, building with proper macronutrients. So I've done a lot. I've been working on my whole life. I used to have a personal training business. So for me, I think as actors, our bodies are our tools, and we have to continuously refine.
Yeah, for me, I also work out 5 days a week. Apparently not nearly as hard. I also have a personal trainer. Mine didn't train me superheroes, but he really works for me. I try to change up my routine every 3 to 4 months. So right now I'm in circuit training, which is more like what you'd see for CrossFit. So I do a lot of circuits. I'll do 100 front squats, 100 dumbbell kettlebell swings, and then 2 other things for 100. And then in between those, I'll do burpees and push-ups, which is just to keep my heart rate up and kind of work on my cardio. And then next week I switch back to a strength regimen because I want to get a little bit bigger so I can actually look like Chris. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do in terms of your fitness level. So if you're doing a superhero movie, I assume it's a different workout than if you're trying to be like a trim runner for a sports movie. For me, I don't really worry about getting too big. I want functional strength. And I more am looking to use it for mocap. I don't know if I'll ever do a lot of on-camera stuff, but for mocap, you also have to be able to carry a decent amount of weight because you'll have equipment on. And you'll also have to be able to move and be athletic. So that's a lot of what I put into my training so that if I'm lucky enough to get into mocap, I can move around on a set and be able to do the stuff I need for 8 to 12 hours a day.
Does that help with voice acting at all?
I mean, the throat is a muscle, so I still work that out when I audition for stuff and I keep it healthy. But in terms of keeping my body fit, it does help with your stamina when you have to scream at, like a Call of Duty session for 2 to 4 hours. It does help to have good cardio, but it's not as much of a function as when you're trying to be on set or doing mocap.
But there is vocal training that you can work with a vocal coach, which is what I did earlier in my career. And
I'm talking about how you threw me under the bus. That's all.
hey, look,
I'm just trying to better myself.
The closest,
but I don't look like a superhero, so it's not validated, I guess.
The closest I'm ever going to get to Chris is there is a Danish show called Under Fire on Netflix that I dubbed, and it's like a Chicago Fire type ER type of thing, and firefighters, and they're all hot, and I'm like, then they cast me as the young hot recruit who's like, all right, let's get this fire, let's go. And then he's falling in love with the other girl and everything. I'm like, this is the best I'm ever gonna look. and it's just my voice, but it's okay. So people see this hunky guy and they're going, all right, let's go. I got this, it's all I know, don't worry, we got this. It's like, ooh, he sounds dreamy. Yes, because that's my voice. But yes, as far as just kind of branching into how it affects performances and stuff, I will say that voice acting is still very important. Voice acting is, if you're doing an action game, you have to have the action, because I can't be I'm throwing a punch. You have to get mobile in the booth. You can't be knocking out the microphone or going off microphone, but you have to be on microphone and putting your body into the performance. So, especially if there's running, jumping, climbing, things like that, we're going to be moving around in the booth, but we have to be very careful to stay on the mic so that the microphone gets all of that. But then, with the mocap stuff and the facial capture stuff, they'll have a rig where they have a microphone on your head, so if you're moving around, you've still got the microphone, like an anglerfish type of thing. So there's there's all sorts of different technology to capture it so that you can actually be active in the movie.
I'll say this to finish. Sorry. Working out teaches discipline, and when you're exhausted in that booth and you're not there, that discipline will help you through. And it doesn't need to just be working out. It could be through meditation, it could be through many vocal practices as well. But that discipline is extremely important because when you start and when you end, you need to be there for that job. You're only working 4 hours typically. It's pretty easy, but you gotta stay focused through that whole process.
I've got one question back here. Sure. So you had mentioned that you've done some work with Pokemon Rising. That was obviously a bit of a paradigm shift. They took the story that was running for 25, 26 years and pivoted to new characters. I was hoping you could kind of reflect. Just the first 12 episodes are on Netflix as of now, so you want to avoid spoilers, so something hasn't come out yet. But in any case, what's sort of the pivot sort of been like? What's changed? What's the same? You want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I'm going to yield to Bill because he's worked on both shows. So,
Well, and you did some work on the series prior.
I did a couple of things, but it's not like I was rock. So like,
I know. So, well, so that's actually been the thing about it is that now, we did those episodes last year with Ash Brock and Misty, the final episodes that they were in. However, in the 18 years that I was working on the show, I have accumulated the 64 creatures. So in the new series, we've got Nosepass and Elekid and Metagross are on the ship with the crew, and I'm like, oh cool, right there, I've got 3 creatures that are right in, and then others have shown up, and others, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's other classic ones that I've voiced who make reappearances in different episodes. So yeah, it's weird just being creatures. Every once in a while I get to be like a person for an episode, be like, there's a dock worker or a different character or something like that that's saying some stuff. But yeah, it's mostly creature stuff with the show, but I still get to work on it, and I'm happy about that because we were all like, oh, so this is it, huh? And they're like, no, if you do creature stuff in the show, you'll still be there. So. And then we've been bringing guys like this guy in.
Well, and from what I've noticed, and I've only had limited clips of the series, I haven't seen full episodes, but the new series seems a little bit more mature and a little bit darker than what I saw, because I did a couple of episodes towards the tail end of the last Pokemon series, and it definitely still felt like a Saturday morning cartoon that was meant for kids, whereas when I'm recording this one, it feels like it has a little bit more of an edge, and the stories are going to be a little bit more mature, which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not something I saw a lot in the original series, and it's something I kind of like, because I also got to work on Secrets of the Jungle, which was the last Pokemon movie that they did.
That's a deep movie.
Yeah, that was a way more mature movie than I was expecting, and it was awesome to dig your teeth into, because they don't shy away from like the more adult themes of like, hey, somebody might not make it through this episode. I don't know if that's going to happen in the main show, but in the movie that was touched on, I was like, I was not ready for that. That's kind of cool. So I think for me, that's the biggest shift, is I think tonally they're going to tell more mature stories, which I'm always about. I love like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or obviously I work on Hazbin Hotel. I love mature, more adult-driven shows. And I think they're also realizing that a lot of the kids that watch the show are now grown-ups with their own kids, and now they're kind of splitting the difference, so both the parent and the kid can kind of enjoy the show.
I forgot to mention, your daughter's a rude in Secrets.
Yeah, which is really great. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's one of my favorite things I've ever done. That was cool.
We have time for one more question. It's right here.
Hi, I'm Pat.
Hello, Pat.
Yeah, it's like never seen or heard your voice before. So I'm a bit of a writer, and I've had a little bit of the call directing experience with just a little, convention fan project kind of thing. And one thing that I've noticed is like if I'm writing for an existing character, like somebody knows a lot about in the fandom, and the person who I'm directing or writing for also knows that character, possibly knows them better than I do, sometimes it kind of runs into a bit of a conflict. I'm wondering, in terms of you guys having either maybe a lot of experience with a particular character, or maybe in the case of like Wheeljack or Soundwave, somebody, like a character that you sort of grew up with, and then somebody, either the writer or the director, like, there might be a little bit of a conflict, or you think that you might be cut that way. How do you resolve that? And more importantly, would you prefer someone on that other end of the glass approach you with it if there's an issue?
So for me, I always default to the director or the showrunner that's in the room. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with them, and they're going to make the final call. Even when we were working on Hazbin, the pilot, and Helluva, they let us ad-lib and do a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, Viv is going to be the one that makes the call of, is that a character, will that fit, we still have to animate that, because I can go off on a tangent, but she's the one that's got to pay the animators to animate it. So it's got to be a character, it's got to fit their time budget and all that stuff, and they make that call. With War for Cybertron, we were lucky to have people working on that show that were experts, whether it was with Beast Wars or with the Transformers series as a whole, and so we might be able to offer a suggestion, but the scripts were already pretty flawless. We didn't really do a lot of ad-lib, at least I didn't do a lot of ad-libbing, and if I was going to suggest anything, they would say either yay or nay, and that would be it. So I think at the end of the day, who's ever running the project, if that's going to be you or somebody else, it's nice to have a collaborative process, but the buck stops with you, and at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make that call.
Great answer. So that's the time we have for this panel. I know there's a few questions we didn't get to. I'm sorry about that. These gentlemen might hang out in the hallway a little bit if you want to.
Well, actually, we got to sign over.
Oh yeah, you've got tables upstairs.
So yeah, there's tables by where the vendor area is on the 3rd floor.
Exhibit hall, doors C, I believe.
Exhibit hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing signings between 2 and 4. So
Yes.
Okay, so
Say hi, yeah.
Chris,
You're gonna come back with us to the table?
signing later.
Oh, I signed already.
Oh, you signed already?
All right, if you guys want to say hi, I'm walking around.
There you go.
all right.
Thank you guys for coming.
Let's have a big round of applause for our voice actors panel.
Thank you guys.
And there you go. That's the end of this podcast episode on the annual Voice Actors Speak panel. Christopher Sean, Edward Bosco, and Bill Rogers were great guests to have. Edward Bosco and Bill Rogers loved playing off of each other. They were like a comedic duo. And Christopher Sean, he is full of information about what to do and what not to do when it comes to voice acting. And the three of them were a plethora of knowledge when it came to going into the field, what to do, what not to do, things that you can do at home, things that you can look up on the internet if you want to get in to voice acting. There is a very large knowledge base out there, and if you're interested, just go on the internet and look it up. And that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the podcast very much. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and game on.